I'm Alex Jones, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We will be here for the next 3 hours. And wow, is there a lot of news and information to cover. We are going to open the phones up throughout the 3 hours today. And when we come back in the next break, I'm going to give the phone number out for first-time callers in the first hour into the second hour. Then we'll have a total free-for-all after that. I'll do my best job racing to your calls and going through them as quickly as I can. Where to begin? You know, former Secretary of Defense Gates was quoted last week, CBS News, saying a military strike against Iran would be catastrophic. The current head of the CIA, Panetta, warns conflict between Syria and Turkey may produce regional war, or Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. I always get that mixed up with CIA, pretty much the same thing. Said on Saturday that the conflict on the border between Syria and Turkey may spread to the neighboring countries and create a regional war. So there you have it. Meanwhile, a think tank, Path to Iran Nuke Warhead, 2 to 4 months. That's the Associated Press. So the hype is out there. You've got think tanks on C-SPAN, you know, the Near East Group Center and others openly saying we need a false flag to go into Iran. In fact, cue that up, guys. I know I said Friday, cue it up, never went to it, but I'm going to go to that coming up the next segment because it's so important. All of this is unfolding before our very eyes, and Obama, NATO, the globalist, with Turkey have been inserting tens of thousands of al-Qaeda and other jihadis into Syria to engage in just incredibly immoral preemptive invasion proxy war. And now the UN and NATO have had to admit, and Turkey's had to admit, okay, we don't have proof that Syria fired some mortars. And we did basically make it up that they had apologized for it. So there's your false flag right there. And even Panetta is saying, again, as I just read, that this could lead to a much, much wider war that could lead to a new world war. But this is a war going on, a large war going on. And it ties into the world economic meltdown that's happening. It ties into the martial law preparations, troops more and more on the streets running crowd control in the United States, just a phase into martial law, unannounced martial law. All of this is happening. And they're trying to bring back the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act for forced inoculations. I'm going to get back into that news that I covered some of yesterday, but a lot more is out on that now. And then, of course, TSA and the police are rolling out at checkpoints body scanners that, quote, know everything about your body. DrudgeReport.com, link to our story on Friday throughout the weekend by Lisa Garber up at Infowars.com. But I want to go over some of this because these are just quack machines, just like they hook you up to a lie detector and say, oh, it says you're a terrorist, and it turns out it's a fraud. Or crime labs have been caught framing people in every major city that you can imagine. Dallas, Houston, just where I live in Texas, New York, the FBI crime lab's famous, the San Francisco crime lab, industrial scale frame-ups. Well, now they just have a computer. Well, it says you have explosives. It says you smoke marijuana. It says you're a drug addict. Goodbye, no judge, no jury, the computer says. So it's just a complete overthrow of our liberty and freedom. That's all coming up. Romney's vowing to arm al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. So him and Obama are battling out to see who can be the most warmongering. Just completely immoral on its face. But because the public is so ignorant on basic facts, it's just a non-issue. Insider billionaire investors like George Soros and John Paulson have recently made massive moves into gold, purchasing what Bloomberg News described as gold hoards. Soros alone doubled his holdings in a single day. Russia's Vladimir Putin has doubled down on gold, increasing the country's holdings by over 100%, with $1.8 trillion under management. The bond king, Bill Gross, the world's preeminent bond fund manager at PIMCO, has warned investors of the dangers of QE3 and inflation. And what's he betting on? You guessed it, gold. Friends, this is Alex Jones for MidasResources.com. For more than 15 years, I have exclusively used Midas Resources for all my precious metal needs. Whether it's bullion or collectibles you're looking for, Midas Resources is simply the best. I own my gold as a hedge against inflation. This Federal Reserve fiat currency could go the way of the Deutschmark and the Weimar Republic anytime. In these historically dangerous times, it makes sense to physically hold gold and silver. Midas already has some of the best deals in the industry. But if you give them a call and mention the radio special, they will give you a list of the day's super specials. Midas brokers are standing by to answer all your questions at 800-686-2237. They also have a lot of informative free literature explaining the opportunities and risk of holding precious metals. They are ready to answer your questions at 800-686-2237. Again, that's 800-686-2237. We're going to have wide open phones throughout the 3 hours, interspersed with masses of vital news and information. I spent about 10 minutes yesterday on this, but didn't go through but a fraction of the articles I have on it. There are reports all over the United States in newspapers saying that there are no side effects from the flu vaccine, the seasonal flu vaccine. So I thought I would read from the CDC the side effects from the seasonal flu vaccine. You can also just type into a search engine, insert for seasonal flu vaccine 2012. And epilepsy, narcolepsy, Guillain-Barré, there's hundreds of them. So we'll be going over those and then reading from stories like the News Journal out of Texas, saying there is absolutely no harm from getting a vaccination. That's a quote. Don't let yourself be fooled by wild rumors. So we're going to be going over that at the bottom of the next hour. I'm going to do a whole report on that. The facts versus the wild rumors. You know, I love the, quote, mainstream media, the dinosaur skeleton. I mean, it's a skeleton of what it once was. Always sitting up there just saying, oh, rumors, conspiracy theorists. They've got these one-liner terms. Oh, kooks, crazy people. Oh, really? Well, we're going to go over the facts here. The Canadian government study saying it doubles your chances of getting the flu to take the flu shot. Merck and their MMR shot giving you MMR. I mean, we've got it all right here. And we're going to be breaking it down for you. We also have a new article up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. American undergraduates recruited for population control agenda as UN raises the stakes. Yeah, UN operatives under foundation funding. That's the big robber baron groups that are tax-free. Their profits are tax-free to carry out these operations of engineering society. They are totally shifting the American system and coming in with unlimited money and tax incentives to hand over control of every facet of our lives. And I was talking to my dad this weekend. He was talking to a major health company executive. And the fellow was telling my dad, it's one of my dad's friends for years, wow, you know, you're absolutely right. And, you know, this stuff's really happening. I was sent to this, Harvard Executive Business School for a few months. And they just told us, you know, the world government is here. It's going to be run by foundations. They are going to take over the role of government, and they're going to be called stakeholders, and it's Agenda 21. I mean, that's it. But you don't need to go to some Harvard, executive school. Of course, they're there telling you this is the way of the future. This is how you're going to be able to even have a job in the future. You better just submit to the New World Order. And again, they have their operatives in all the government regulatory positions. They're going to be allowed to operate and do business. You and I are not. And they're going to use regulations to bankrupt everybody. Take France. They've got close to a 90% tax rate on, quote, the wealthy. Unless you're the ultra-rich, they're then exempt with loopholes and enforcement. And then the nouveau riche French are able to, flee the country, but not for long because it's a new world order. Global government is all about not being able to flee. But the nouveau riche are trying to flee. Got articles today where they're selling their property, selling their holdings, and getting out. But if you look at what's happening now, France is trying to erect currency and capital controls where you can. Same things are being erected here in the United States. That's why so many extremely wealthy people, including members of John Wayne's family and others, were escaping in the last 3 years. They were saying, you've got to get out by 2012, then the rules change. So it's all happening right now. A global corporate tyranny is coming in and shutting down freedom. And it's in all the financial publications. It's all being announced. Meanwhile, though, the average police officer is being given manuals saying if somebody talks about global corporate government, they're a terrorist that wants to kill you. This doesn't exist. And the average cop is just like the general public, dumber than a box of rocks, dumbed down. And I've got articles here today in my stack where people that play terrorist in TV shows are being attacked, are being confronted, because the public doesn't know the difference. And studies have shown that, that when people watch shows like 24, then, of course, that show's no longer on, well, they don't have new episodes, but it's in syndication, or when they watch all the dozens of other shows, every cop show, every military show out there, you torture people. Good guys torture. Good guys break rules. Good guys kill innocent people. Good guys torture children. And people are watching this, fantasizing. In fact, here's that article, then I'll get into the other news. Damian Lewis feared he was going to get his head pulverized after he was confronted over his terrorist role in Homeland. These are the type of shows they have. And they have shows now where it's based in Texas, and you're a terrorist, basically, if you're pro-gun. Homeland star Damian Lewis has revealed how he feared he was going to get beaten up for playing a terrorist. The Emmy-winning actor said he was confronted by an angry American while filming the series where he plays a Marine who's been turned by a terrorist group. He said his portrayal of the traitor was so convincing that people actually believed he was real. And again, who are the terrorists in Homeland? The confrontation came as he filmed Homeland in Charlotte, North Carolina. He told Knoxville.com. There was a slightly hairy moment down in Charlotte. There was a barbecue going on, and there was a bunch of Southern boys. They're drinking beer, eating fried chicken, eating steak. One of them comes up to me and says, "So you're playing a terrorist?" A nervous Lewis said, "Yes, I actually don't know yet." He looked me in the eye, slightly drunk, blurry-eyed, I thought. I was about to get my head pulverized. I'm going to bleep off a lot of people. And then he goes into basically the guy threatening him. Lewis joked that when he first met Obama, he asked him if he could let him know when the U.S. planned to attack Iran so he could use it in his second series of Homeland. And these are all these shows coming out. They've got a new one on NBC called Founding Fathers coming out, where an army commando infiltrates a group of right-wingers who don't want to turn their guns in and are terrorists. And the cops are all watching this, thinking that if you actually are a real American and understand what's happening, you're a terrorist, and then they fantasize. It all blurs together. What Hasselhoff has talked about, people constantly coming up to him thinking Baywatch was real and that he was really a lifeguard there. You know, the actors involved in Fantasy Island talked about how constantly they were being approached about where is Fantasy Island? We want to go there. I read articles about people thought Gilligan's Island was real and being filmed there. You see, the general public, and this is the key to everything, is in a suspended disbelief. That's when you go to a movie and within minutes, the average person clicks off and just accepts it as real. That's why movies and things really aren't entertaining to me anymore, because I don't ever really suspend my disbelief. I'm sitting there thinking about the lighting and the wardrobe and the acting. And a couple of weeks ago, Billy Corrigan, Smashing Pumpkins founder, was here in Austin. We went out to dinner, and we went to a steakhouse, and they play pretty good jazz in there. I mean, I like it. And it was Eddie V's, and I said, hey, you want to go listen, you know, in the lounge, or you want to go eat in here, in the main dining room? He goes, no, the lounge. He goes, it sounds good, but I'll be at work the whole time thinking about what they're doing and what they're playing. I want to be as far away from the music as possible, because he had to play at Stubbs the next night. And it's the same thing. I'm sitting there watching this. I mean, it's in the news that all these shows are paid by Homeland Security, billions of dollars a year total. I mean, you saw it in the news 2 weeks ago where hundreds of millions is being spent of the huge, some years, $10 billion budget of government to pay to have propaganda placement, what they call behavior placement, into the shows promoting Obamacare. I mean, we're not in Kansas anymore. That's not what a free country does. This really got big under Clinton. Bush expanded it, and now Obama has exploded it. In fact, the last number I saw, well, Congress ruled and said it's illegal. The Congressional Budget Office, the General Accounting Office, they all looked at it and said, this has got to stop. And last time I checked, it was $10 billion a year. And there it is. Homeland Security films are a big hit, but costly. And again, that's the Austin Chronicle. That's the Houston Chronicle they pulled up. I don't know if that's the particular article pertaining to that, but you can type in Obamacare to be promoted in TV shows, and that'll pull that up for people. The point is, that's like North Korea. That's like Nazi Germany, when the state is there with messages and the public literally goes and accepts it all like it's real. And so that's why we're in this position as a society. That's why when a cop pulls you over and you've got a Ron Paul sticker or get us out of the UN sticker, their training manuals are backed up by countless cop shows where murderers, killers, child killers, child torturers, people that are going to launch bio attacks on New York, every show out there that we go and look at the script of, every show my wife sometimes, downloads different TV shows. She says every medical show demonizes people that don't like abortions, is pro-forced vaccination, anti-family. All the women dramas. They're literally assaulting everyone, and the general public have their imaginary friends on television that are their little buddies, and they're living this fantasy. So when a cop pulls you over, folks, they think they've pulled a terrorist over because you actually follow the Bill of Rights and Constitution.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have absolutely immersed myself in the globalist system. I have immersed myself in researching their white papers, their statements, their goals. And it is a private global corporate government that is scientific-based but predatory, that is seeking after super weapons, life extension technologies, and who sees the general world population as garbage to be taken out, to be reduced down to nothing. And I know I am right about my overall analysis and breakdown of the globalist. Do I occasionally make mistakes? Sure. Yesterday I was talking about an article with a bill in the House of Representatives, and the article was written by Paul Watson. I misread it, that it had passed the House. It's in committee, dealing with preparations for mass casualties. But the point is, the article was about the preparations for mass casualties by FEMA, confirming what Aaron Dykes and I and others broke at Infowars.com 3.5 years ago. But I will make that correction here. It's not passed the House. Or Panetta was the head of the CIA, now Secretary of Defense. So earlier I called him head of the CIA, not Secretary of Defense. Little things like that. But the overall general points we make are incontrovertible. There are multiple congressmen. There are multiple movie stars, Miss USA, the list goes on, and videos of TSA grabbing people's genitals, men's testicles, and crushing them as punishment. Congressman out of San Antonio just a few months ago talked about that. Brushed the guy's hand away as he crushed him. And they said, hey, we're going to charge you with assault for not letting us assault you. TSA agents have pled guilty and admitted they rob people that don't let them grope them or complain. And now the new article is out at Infowars.com. TSA worker smacked me in my testicles for refusing body scan. Federal screeners now crushing genitals as form of punishment. Well, yeah, who else wants this type of job? We're in a very, very dark time. And people who look back on history, you know, they say, how did the Germans do it? How did the Russians do it? How did the Romans put up with it? How did the Babylonians put up with it? How did the ancient Chinese put up with it? Well, most of the time it was fashion. They said it's fashionable to sacrifice your one-year-old child on an altar. Most cultures said, whoa, well, the Druids, the Europeans, they thought it was cool to cut their children up in pieces and eat them. The Aztecs and the Mayans thought it was cool to cut their kids up and eat them. Again, because it was the fashion, it was the religion, it was the style. Japanese wealthy women, Chinese wealthy women would have their feet bound where they couldn't even walk, because when you're really rich, you can't walk. You have to be carried around. That was actually the servant caste manipulating with propaganda the rulers into becoming prisoners. And that's how we're going into bondage, is fads and styles. It's very stylish to get into being scared of Al-Qaeda, who the government publicly runs. It's very stylish to get into having no rights and being jellyfish-like. Men are now taught the more, not even effeminate, but the more weak they are, the more passé, the more passive, the more pathetic they are, the cooler they are. TSA workers smacked me in my testicles for refusing body scan. Federal screeners now crushing genitals as form of punishment. Yeah, it's torture. And then Watson has all these links to mainstream news, not just this latest case, where people complain, so they crush their genitals. Illustrating, once again, how the TSA is handing out arbitrary punishments for people who exercise their right to opt out of radiation-firing body scanners. Frequent flyer Stephen DeFrost described how he had his testicles smacked by a TSA screener for refusing to go through the scanner. While traveling through Las Vegas, oh yeah, I've been through there, DeFrost chose to opt out of the naked body scanner and was told to wait in a glass holding box. A bulky young TSA agent came over to pat me down, DeFrost told author Christopher Elliott. He told me to turn around. He was using his command voice, barking orders. I told him that I wasn't comfortable turning away from my luggage. And well, yeah, because TSA is known to rob you, which has already been screened, and wanted to keep it in sight. The agent issued more orders. Stay here. I didn't tell you to move, and empty your pockets. And DeForest says the federal screener seemed irritated that he didn't obey without hesitation. And that's when DeForest says he was punished. The agent knelt in front of him to conduct the pat down. As he raised his hands, he was looking at me, he says. Then he gave me a quick flick and smacked me in one of my testicles. Well, that's what you get. I mean, that's a freedom. In fact, the new American flag should be testicles with a hammer smashing them flat. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about a year and a half ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals, but the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com. What we have is manufactured public opinion more and more in this country. And even when, 90+%, as the polls in Rhode Island showed, of the nurses and doctors didn't want to be forced to take flu shots and their unions didn't want it, it's now, quote, the law that they take the shots. But really, you read it, it's the law that it's mandated regulatorily, but that they still can't force you to do it. That's coming up later in the next hour. You know, I said I'd go to your phone calls. I want to get into some military and economic news, and then we will. First-time callers, we'd love to hear from you. Give new callers a chance to join us here on air. The toll-free number is 1-800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And I know John Harmon may have already sent it. If you haven't, John, send it over. I know we've got like 7 or 8 new affiliates just signed up in the last week that are now starting today. I'd like to be able to plug all those fine AM and FM stations. We're now over 120 stations and growing. The show is just exploding by the grace of God, and I am very honored to be your host and humbled. Okay. Wow, where to start here on the whole military front? Let me just start here. This is CBS News. Gates, military strike against Iran would be catastrophic. Former Secretary of State Robert Gates warns a military strike on Iran would be catastrophic. Gates made the comment before the Union University 15th Annual Scholarship Banquet. The results of an American or Israeli military strike on Iran could, in my view, prove catastrophic. Haunting us for generations in that part of the world, Gates said, according to the Virginia pilot. There's video of it. Okay, so there's that. Here is another one, Kurt Nimmo, but he links through to the Associated Press. Panetta warns conflict between Syria and Turkey may produce regional war. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said on Saturday that the conflict on the border between Syria and Turkey may spread to neighboring countries and create a regional war. What have I been saying for months is happening? They're trying to get a Shiite-Sunni civil war going. And to have the defense secretary, who was the head of the CIA, Leon Panetta, come out and act like that they're not part of this, just like we had Dempsey come out a month ago, Secretary, he's the chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and say, hey, if Israel attacks, we're not involved with what happens. That's balderdash. NATO is run by the globalist. The United States is run by the globalist. Our military's been told they're under NATO command. When our troops die, the newspaper says NATO troops now. NATO, in the UN's own words, is the global government army. Just type in NATO is the global government army. You'll get Herman von Rompuy, Barroso, the heads of the EU. I just got chills. Man, it's all coming down. It's so insane. I was just reading where they're now implementing the New Freedom Initiative that started 5 years ago. Nationwide in the government training camps and the private schools that are quote accredited, they're taking the 5- and 6-year-olds and putting them through psychological screening written by Big Pharma to put 50% of kids on drugs. They got 20%. In their own documents, WorldNet Daily got them. Pennsylvania head of the program went public, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. You can pull these up, and said the plan is to drug half the kids. They had 20% on psychotropics then. They're just going to say half the kids are mentally ill and put them on deadly drugs. And then Rob Dew was just showing me mainstream articles about it today, where now they want to come to homeschoolers' houses, even if you try to escape them. The government cult comes, and then if you don't trust the government cult, that's signs of mental illness, and then the SWAT team comes. I mean, it's now coming to the armed men are coming to give your children to the psychiatry cult run by Big Pharma that's founded by eugenicists. I mean, just 100 years ago, they were doing public in a traveling road show, the U.S. Psychology Association, Psychiatry Association, where they would do at county fairs, they would do with ice picks. You can, if you don't believe me, look this up, of, quote, mentally ill people, and everybody would gather around, and they would jab an ice pick through the temple into the brain and just start stabbing the brain of local, generally Down syndrome children and others who'd grown up and were a little boisterous and couldn't be controlled. They just ice pick them. Guys, type in psychiatrist performing public lobotomy, and there'll be photos of psychiatry students around it being done, but also traveling buses into the 40s doing it. I mean, again, it's just the hell level of all this, the hell force. And people will just not believe it's happening. You're going to see people get more and more angry at us, folks, more and more upset as millions wake up every week. And as the show explodes and as it goes into overdrive and as I face whatever fate I face is my punishment from the globalist, Doesn't matter. It's absolute destiny that I do this. You're going to see those that wake up and become enlightened and absolutely tear away the trance they're in and just see the nightmare we're in. And you're going to have those that become absolutely angry, even those that we've thought have been awake, friends and family, you know, as the horror of reality gets so real. And in their face, they are going to embrace the darkness instead of the light. And it's just we're going to see insane times. Our children turned over to psychiatry. Checkpoints on the highways run by regular Army and Marines, now in the news everywhere. No longer are they drills. Told you that was coming. You're going to see just the breakdown of society and the family. You're going to see major cities where the police pull back and don't even provide. You're going to see it in Oakland. They've already announced 35 crimes, including felonies, armed robbery that they won't respond to. They've now put up public notices in Detroit not to enter it, and if you do at your own risk, the police will now only do revenue generation for themselves. Hundreds of sheriff's departments, hundreds, are announcing at least 50% cuts, and those that they keep will be revenue generation. This is the design collapse. This is designed barbarism. You see, this is the opposite of the Enlightenment or the Renaissance. This is the reversal of society. This is the destruction of humanity. This is the post-industrial world. This is the new dark age. This is the Hunger Games model where that's what Agenda 21 is, where we live in rural areas and are under calorie control. And when we go above a certain calorie level, we're going to be put into forced labor camps. That's why the Defense Department's putting cameras in lunchrooms from Florida to Texas, scanning the children, and reports are being made. Children will also be taken if they're 1 pound overweight. All of that has been announced. This is the total phase-in of just hell. TSA is now operating checkpoints on highways all over the place. They're now crushing testicles of those that don't submit to them, robbing bags of those that don't submit to them as punishment. It is just... And again, the average person who's accepted all this, they hear me reporting on what's admitted, and I'm bad for reporting it. Now, again, the Secretary of Defense has said an Iran attack will be horrible. The last SecDef has said it will be a catastrophe that could lead to a new world war. Most think tanks say that. Most analysts, military and historical analysts say that. But the bankers don't care. They know they're about to ride that dragon, ride that tiger. They bring in a big enough global crisis, a big enough global meltdown, a big enough global catastrophe. They're going to be able to then pose as the saviors. Just as they've implemented the derivatives worldwide crash, the black hole impossible to pay back, and signed us onto it, and then have the prostitute media tell the public it's our debt when it's not our debt. They know what they're doing. One country called their bluff, Iceland, and found out 90+% of the debt was the bankers and not theirs, and arrested the head bankers, who it turned out were foreign banking agents. This is a new kind of war. This is a corporate carpetbagger style takeover. This is economic warfare. Carpetbagger 2.0 worldwide. And it's here. And it's real. And it's going to get insane. As long as we don't have a mass awakening that the bad guys are the ones imploding things to reorganize and re-engineer and re-educate, just as the communists, run by the bankers, did in the Soviet Union and did in communist China. They want to implode things first. That was declassified from the Red Terror under Lenin. That was released by the Russians. In the last few decades, they've been releasing all that, where it was admitted that they wanted to shut down production. They wanted to starve people. They wanted to cut the power off. They wanted to shut everything off. They know what they're doing. They've got to destroy us. They've got to bring us down. And what I feel sorry for is the idiots that serve the system. Folks, they're not bad people, most of them. They're idiots. They're drawn from the general public that literally has never opened a history book and has no idea what we're staring at right now. So, Panetta warns conflict between Syria and Turkey may produce regional war. And then in the video clip, he goes on to say it is a war already. No kidding. New York Times concedes that it is unknown whether Syrian artillery came from rebels or government. And Turkey's still shelling them. And has passed this declaration of war, basically. But they don't call it that, so it's not a war. AP reports think tank, path to Iran nuke warhead 2 to 4 months. So, again, the word is they're either going to hit them in late October, early November, or they're going to wait and hit whenever the new president, whether it's the old president or Romney, in February. And you can just type in war set for next spring or late winter. I don't know. And they may not do it then. There may be cooler heads prevail. But they don't have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs saying this is a bad idea, and the Secretary of Defense and the last Secretary of Defense saying it's a bad idea and could be a catastrophe. What did Ron Paul say 2 weeks ago about QE Unlimited? He said, you should be panicking. Ron Paul is absolutely right. Cue up that Ron Paul, you should be panicking after I play this. I'm going to go to your calls, Sean, Harold, Josh, Robert, Nick, everybody, but this has got to be covered. We now have Mitt Romney. The story is up at Infowars.com. And I just had it here in front of me, and I've got so many articles I now can't find it. Here it is. Romney vows to arm al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. And again, you've got the neocons saying Obama didn't handle this al-Qaeda attack in Libya properly. You know, he should have had more security. NATO runs al-Qaeda and put them in the country. I mean, that's admitted. So none of them are even having a real debate. And now Romney has come out and is set to give a speech tonight, but they've already released details of it, saying we need to back the valiant rebels that are attacking Syria. I mean, this is so immoral. I have never seen a time in history where the public was so dumbed down that an elite would simultaneously say we've got to take all your rights and liberties because al-Qaeda is going to attack you at the airport or on the highway, and that the Tea Party works with al-Qaeda. That's in the new Army manual. I mean, just ridiculous. And that simultaneously they run al-Qaeda. I mean, real al-Qaeda. We have the videos up there in news articles over the weekend. Headline, you know, rebel leader, al-Qaeda flag, we will not stop until al-Qaeda flag flies over White House. Well, I mean, it already does. The globalists run al-Qaeda. Romney vows to arm al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria, Infowars.com. Mitt Romney will vow to arm Syrian rebels today during a major foreign policy speech, illustrating once again how there is virtually no difference between Romney and Obama when it comes to serving the interest of military-industrial complex. And he's saying there aren't enough troops on the ground. They've got U.S. advisors literally advising guys with al-Qaeda uniforms on and al-Qaeda flags. That's in BBC, Reuters, you name it, LA Times. I mean, again, this is all so off the charts. Let's go ahead and go to this video clip. It's up at Infowars.com. We covered it last week. Breaking. Lobbyist. We need a false flag to start war with Iran. Patrick Clausen of the influential neocon Washington Institute for Near East Studies openly suggests the U.S. should provoke Iran into taking the first shot. Now, what did Cheney want to do? Paint up a U.S. boat like an Iranian boat, have Navy SEALs attack. But the head of CENTCOM, Admiral Fallon, Fox Fallon, said no and resigned. This would have already happened, ladies and gentlemen. And again, it will be bad for everybody. $7, $8, $9, $10 a barrel gas or a gallon of gas, you know, $200, $300 a barrel crude oil. But the globalists want to get this going. Here is the clip on C-SPAN. They posted this on their own website, too. Go watch the whole speech. It's incredible. It's an hour long. Here it is. Here they are thinking you're so stupid. They're talking about false flags on TV. Here it is.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that. But I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. It's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians.
Yeah.
We could get nastier at that.
Oh, yeah. Like 9/11? Like PNAC wrote in September 20th, 2000, a new Pearl Harbor event, a catastrophic terror attack, killing 3,000? They actually said 3,000. Boy, they know what they're doing. Oh, yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore, ladies and gentlemen. There is unlimited evil taking place right now. Does that mean the Iranians are good? No. The Iranian government? No. But this is what's happening, and the bankers want this world war to bring in their world government. As they've said, they're going to use the crisis to bring in world government. The banking crisis alone. Your calls are straight ahead. Stay with us. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.